Your latest news update from Western Mass News.
Here's your latest update from Western Mass News. Flooding concerns around the area today as the Connecticut River continues to rise following heavy rain here and up north in Vermont. Walkways and docks at the Oxbow Marina submerged after waters rose 5 to 6 feet overnight. And local farmers assessing the damage, one losing a crop of sweet corn after the water rose above his corn stalks, a total loss in the tens of thousands of dollars. The damage extending up and down the Connecticut River. A Chicopee boat ramp flooded, debris and tree branches in the water. Damage extending to the Boathouse restaurant in South Hadley. Officials are warning about dangers of swimming or any water activities now and advise everyone to stay clear of the river and fast-moving water. And President Joe Biden is in Lithuania for the annual NATO summit. He's expected to have a meeting with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky during the international gathering of leaders. Zelensky is pushing Biden and other world leaders for the invite to NATO, but some officials say that could lead to a precarious situation at this time.
I'm meteorologist Jana Brown with a check of your forecast. Tonight's looking nice, actually. Mostly clear skies throughout the evening. Temperatures will be dropping back down to the lower and middle 60s. We'll have just a touch of mugginess, but similar to last night. Light breeze coming in out of the south and west and more comfortable than it's been in quite a few days. Now, tomorrow starts off nice, but we're going to have increasing clouds throughout the day. More humidity by tomorrow evening with a chance for a stray shower or thunderstorm, especially north of the Mass Pike. It'll be a hot afternoon, too, with temperatures climbing into the lower 90s throughout the valley, and we'll end up seeing another mostly sunny day. But things do continue to go downhill through the end of the week, both Thursday and Friday. That's what that should say, Thursday and Friday. We're expecting a better chance for showers and storms with much higher humidity on the way and highs in the upper 80s on Thursday. Some late day showers and storms could become strong to severe, and there's already a low severe weather risk, so that'll likely be a first alert weather day. Then Friday, scattered showers and storms continue. Heavy rain is possible, and that could lead to more flash flood concerns.
Stay with Western Mass News on air, online, and on our app throughout the day for breaking news, weather, and exclusive content.